Executive, let's take a look at this. Executive and coaches rank Shedeur Sanders 35th out of 35 veteran quarterbacks. Shedeur worse than JJ McCarthy and Penix. I don't believe that.
35 out of 35. Dead last. That is where NFL executives and coaches just placed Shedeur Sanders on a brand new anonymous survey, and the internet did not take it well. Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson sat down on Nightcap, read the list live, and within minutes they were not just reacting, they were pushing back on the entire premise. Today, we are breaking down exactly what these executives said about Shedeur, why Unc and Ocho think the ranking is missing the whole story, and why this list has front offices and fans arguing about what actually counts as proof. Let's start with what actually happened, because the number itself is real. According to reporting cited on the show, 50 NFL executives and coaches were surveyed and asked to rank all 35 veteran quarterbacks in the league. Shedeur Sanders landed at the very bottom, 35th place, behind every other passer on the list, including rookies and backups who have barely played a snap. The quotes attached to that ranking are blunt. One defensive coordinator reportedly said he sleeps like a baby the week he gets to play against Shedeur. Another executive said he is inaccurate on all three levels of the field, meaning short, intermediate, and deep throws all got flagged. A third voice in that same report said there's a huge gap between where Shedeur is right now and what they consider competent starting quarterback play. Those are not soft criticisms. Those are the kind of quotes that get repeated on every NFL show for a week straight. And Shannon and Chad knew it the second they read them out loud. Chad's first reaction was almost disbelief, pointing out that Shedeur only started 7 games as a rookie last season after coming in for an injured Dylan Gabriel. In that short stretch, he threw somewhere around 8 or 9 touchdowns against 10 interceptions, which is rookie turbulence, not proof of a ceiling. Shannon picked up on the same thread immediately. His argument was simple. You cannot fairly evaluate a passer's accuracy on all 3 levels when that training camp as QB1, barely had consistent first-team reps, and got thrown into the fire mid-season because someone else got hurt. Chad's line was blunt too. He said it is hard to expect a guy to come out and put on a show when he's not getting consistent reps. So right away, before this video even gets to the argument section, you have to understand the tension here. The executives are grading Shedeur on tape from a chaotic rookie stretch. Unc and Ocho are arguing that stretch was never designed to let him succeed in the first place. Same games, same stat line, 2 completely different conclusions. And that gap is exactly why this ranking blew up the way it did.
Executive and coaches rank Shedeur Sanders 35th out of 35 veteran quarterbacks per Mike Sandos, The Athletic. One DC said, I sleep like a baby if I got to play him every week. One executive says he's inaccurate on all 3 levels. I can't tell if he's going to get better, but there's a huge gap between him and a competent quarterback play. Damn!
Hey,
Shedeur came in at 35. Deshaun came in at 31.
Here's the part nobody expected. Chad Johnson did not fully disagree with the list. He agreed Shedeur has real room to grow. What he pushed back on was the rankings context, and that is where things got interesting. Shannon Sharpe's counterargument was rooted in professionalism, not denial. He made a point of saying this is exactly the conversation you have when you talk about being a professional and being ready when your number is called. In other words, he is not letting Shedeur off the hook completely. He is saying the rookie year is what it is. There is real room to improve, and now the responsibility is on Shedeur to show it. But then Chad flipped the frame entirely. He asked the question that actually made the segment go viral. Should Shedeur really be ranked worse than JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix, 2 quarterbacks with far less starting experience, far less production, and in McCarthy's case, almost no meaningful NFL tape at all? Chad said flatly he does not believe that, and he was not alone in that reaction once the clip started circulating. Shannon's response leaned on respect for the process. He pointed out that these executives have evaluated talent far longer than either of them, and that they get paid what he called a king's ransom specifically to watch tape all the time. That is a fair point, and it is the kind of nuance that gets lost when a headline just says, "dead last." But Shannon also drew a hard line in the same breath. When the conversation shifted to Patrick Mahomes sitting at number 1 on the same list, Shannon basically said there is no debate there. Anybody who did not have Mahomes at the top, injury or not, is not doing their job right. 5 Super Bowl appearances in 6 years, 3 rings, 2-time league MVP, 3-time Super Bowl MVP. Shannon's exact words were, "What are we even discussing?" That contrast matters. Shannon is not out here saying every executive opinion is wrong. He is saying the Tier 1 names on this list, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, are locked in by years of consistent winning. Shedeur is a rookie with 7 career starts. Ranking him behind quarterbacks with almost no track record at all is where the list stops making sense to both hosts, even though they approach the disagreement from slightly different angles.
I don't believe that. I'm sorry,
Chad.
Look, and this is and these execs, you guys have evaluated talent a lot longer than I have, but I'll take Shedeur over them two
All day long.
That's just me.
All day long.
Everybody's entitled to that's their opinion. Obviously, they get paid a king's ransom to evaluate players, Ocho.
Now stay with this, because the show does not stop at defending Shedeur. It turns into a full breakdown of how these rankings actually work, and that context changes how you should read the number 35 in the first place. Later in the episode, Shannon walks through how the survey actually splits the league into tiers, and this is the piece most reaction videos completely skip. According to the breakdown discussed on the show, only 4 names landed in true Tier 1: Mahomes, Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, and, by Shannon's own separate argument, Lamar Jackson deserves to be in that group too, even though the survey had him lower. Everyone from roughly 5th to 17th on the list falls into a broad Tier 2, meaning the gap between a middling Tier 2 quarterback and someone at the very bottom of that group can be extremely small on paper, even if the ranking makes it look like a canyon. Shannon made a bigger structural point here that applies directly to Shedeur. He said people act like there are fewer good quarterbacks in the league right now than there used to be, and he does not buy it. Back in the day, he said, players had to put in multiple years and go to several Pro Bowls before anyone handed them a real title. Now, a guy can have one strong season and instantly get labeled the best at his position. That cuts both ways. It means quarterbacks get overrated fast when they have one good year, and it means young quarterbacks like Shedeur can get buried fast off one rough year, even a year where the circumstances were far from ideal. Chad brought the receipts on exactly how rough those circumstances were. Shedeur did not enter as the planned starter. He took over for Dylan Gabriel after a concussion mid-season, with a locker room and a coaching staff still adjusting on the fly. His best game of the year came in Week 14 against Tennessee, throwing for well over 300 yards with 3 total touchdowns in a loss. That is not the tape of a quarterback with no ceiling. That is the tape of a rookie who flashed real ability inside a genuinely messy situation. And this is where the executive's own quote works against the headline a little. One of them admitted he cannot tell yet if Shedeur is going to get better. That is not a confident dead last projection. That is an admission of uncertainty being dressed up as a hard ranking. Shannon and Chad's entire argument is that uncertainty should not translate into last place on a list of 35, especially when guys with a fraction of Shedeur's starting reps landed comfortably above him.
Come on, man.
They got basically you see that, Ocho, they got we done took it down, but they got 4 Tier 1 guys. They say Mahomes, Allen, Stafford. They're the only Tier 1 guys. And then you got a bunch of Tier 2 guys. So basically 5 through 17 is Tier 2. But when I tell people that, I'm like, guys, y'all keep on talking about everybody. Bro, it's always been, they try to make it seem like now this is fewer quarterbacks than ever. No, it's not. You had the same number of quarterbacks. No. There wasn't a whole bunch of Elways, Montanas, and Dan Marinos back then. They weren't.
Right.
They were not. And just like they tried to elevate people and put them in there, but the only difference I will say now compared to back then is that you had to put multiple years in, Ocho, before they gave you a title.
Yes.
So where does that leave Shedeur, the Browns front office, and everyone treating this ranking like a final verdict? That is the part the segment closes on, and it is the part that should actually worry the people who put this survey together. Here is the bigger picture the ranking conveniently leaves out. Cleveland is not treating Shedeur like a proven bust behind the scenes. Head coach Todd Monken and QB coach Mike Pajakian have both been publicly complimentary of his growth this offseason, and the Browns' own quarterback competition has been described by people covering the team as a genuine open battle, not a courtesy audition. That is a very different internal picture than the one painted by 50 anonymous survey answers. Deshaun Watson is working back from multiple Achilles tears and carries a fully guaranteed contract that changes how Cleveland has to handle this competition politically. Dylan Gabriel is still very much part of the room. None of that context shows up in a simple numbered list, and Shannon's point about tiers is really a point about small sample size. A ranking built off one chaotic rookie season with a guy who did not even start the year as QB1 is measuring circumstance almost as much as it is measuring talent. Off the field, the noise around Shedeur has honestly been the opposite of dead last. He set the all-time NFLPA rookie group licensing record, north of $17 million, beating marks previously held by names like Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. He is one of the top-selling jerseys in the entire league. None of that wins football games, and Shannon and Chad were both clear that production on the field is what ultimately matters, but it does show why this particular number, 35 out of 35, hit differently than a normal ranking would for almost any other young quarterback in the league. The bottom line both hosts landed on is not that Shedeur is being disrespected for no reason. It is that the ranking, as written, treats a rocky first season under bad circumstances as a finished evaluation instead of what it actually is, which is one small, incomplete data set. Shannon's framing was almost a challenge more than a defense. The tape is limited. The reps were limited. Now it is on Shedeur to go out this year, win the starting job outright, and make this exact list look outdated by December.
When you think about Shedeur being last on this list, considering the fact that if he played in 8 games last year, Uncle Ocho, he started in 7.
Right.
I think he had some like 8, 9 touchdowns, but I think he had like 10 picks in those games he played in.
Yeah, in that short span, yeah.
I think that's why he's last on that list. And he does have room for improvement. You know what I mean? But it's hard, bro. When you don't get consistent reps, hell, how you expect for me to come out here and be and put on a show? You know what I mean? But at the same time, this is what we talk about when you talk about being a professional, talking about being ready when your number is called. So I think due to Shedeur's rookie year.
Rank him behind the Tier 1 locks, and that makes sense to almost everyone watching. Rank him behind quarterbacks who have barely taken a regular season snap, and suddenly the number stops feeling like an evaluation and starts feeling like a conversation starter. So let's put the whole thing together. 50 executives and coaches ranked Shedeur Sanders dead last among 35 veteran quarterbacks, and the quotes attached to that ranking were harsh, questioning his accuracy on every level of the field. Shannon Sharpe did not deny the rookie tape was rough, and he framed it as a professionalism challenge, saying it is now on Shedeur to show growth when the games start counting again. Chad Johnson took the more combative angle, directly questioning how Shedeur could rank behind quarterbacks like JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix, who have thrown far fewer meaningful NFL passes. Both hosts agreed on the bigger structural problem. The league's tier system, by their own breakdown, only truly locks in 4 or 5 names at the very top. Everyone else gets shuffled around based on small samples, hot streaks, and in Shedeur's case, 7 starts inside a chaotic mid-season quarterback change. One of the very executives quoted in the report even admitted he cannot tell yet whether Shedeur will improve, which is a very different statement than dead last implies. That gap between what the ranking says and what the context actually shows is exactly why this list is still getting talked about days later. So here is the real question this whole segment leaves you with. Is this ranking a fair, tape-based evaluation of a rookie quarterback who genuinely struggled in a hard spot, or is it an overreaction to one small, chaotic sample that completely ignores the circumstances Shedeur was thrown into? Shannon says the ball is in Shedeur's court now to prove it on the field. Chad says the list itself does not add up when you look at who is ranked above him. Where do you land? Drop a comment and tell us, is Shedeur Sanders really the worst quarterback in the NFL right now, or is this ranking going to look completely wrong by the end of this season? Smash like and subscribe.